really excited for our guest today. We have, well, actually, I'll save the reveal to the end. Our guest graduated, I believe, in 2012.
We started 2012, graduated
Started in
2013.
2012,
Yeah.
13, graduated from the iPEC training program in their early 20s. And from there, they paired up together to create their company, Clarity on Fire. They started their own podcast. They created the Passion Profile Quiz, which I believe has helped over 300,000 people find that intersection between their passion and their career. They've been featured in Forbes, Time, Business Insider, Fast Company, just to name a few. And today they're here to share their story with you and to answer your questions. So please join me in welcoming this powerful duo of success, passion, perseverance, and influence, Rachel and Kristen of Clarity on Fire.
Wow, you make it sound pretty cool.
Should we go ahead and say that I'm Rachel?
And I'm Kristen.
Yeah.
But if you mix us up, it's fine. It happens all the time.
All the time.
Well, let's jump in. A common question here is really what brought you to coaching?
Whew, okay, well, like most people, I think that we graduated from college and everyone has the experience, I think, of, okay, I know what I've been trained to do something and educated to do something that I'm decently good at, but no one ever bothered to ask if I cared about it. That's not how we're socialized as people. So, you know, the only thing you're really qualified to do when you graduate college is whatever you majored in. And so we went directly into jobs in the real world. I was in like communications and marketing, and she was kind of in the same field. And it was just like getting hit by a truck, because the lack of meaning, the lack of purpose, I'm not helping anyone. Like what I'm doing is completely and utterly useless. And to spend so many hours of your day doing something that doesn't feel like it has any deeper meaning or purpose was just so soul sucking. And so we actually bounced around looking into, because we have always had a very similar interest in things. Like we were always interested in psychology and why people do what they do. And so we looked into therapy. And
I didn't even know what coaching was when we
I
were
never heard
working
of it
in these jobs. I didn't know that was a thing. And so as I was looking into therapy, graduate programs, I'm hearing more about this coaching thing in my research. And I decided, let me go talk to a coach and see, what is this thing? How is it different? Is this legit? I really wasn't sure. And I had a session with a coach, and I actually ended up working with a coach, which was so incredibly helpful for two reasons. First, it helped me get clear on whether I wanted to do coaching or therapy. It's very clear that it was coaching. And also it gave me the client perspective. So I got to see, oh, this is what this experience is. It wasn't just a theory. It was a real immersion into the coaching world. And I was instantly thinking, this is it. This is what I've been wanting to do. This is what I've been wanting to help and impact people, but I didn't know how.
At the same time, I had a bad experience in therapy, which is not to throw all therapy under the bus. It's a very awesome and complementary medium to coaching, but it really solidified this is not right for me, because I feel like I'm not making any progress, and I wanted to be having momentum and working toward goals. And that's often not really what therapy is for. And especially not when you're with a bad therapist. So that cemented my desire I'm like, she's having a great experience over there in coaching, and I'm like miserable and getting more miserable over here in my experience. So it so happened that we had a friend who heard us talking about like what we've been getting into, coaching versus therapy. And she's like, well, I'm in this program. And she had just mod 1 of iPEC. And so we looked into it, and then kind of it snowballed from there. But we went into coaching, we went into iPEC. Let me just clarify this right now for everyone who needs to know this. We went in not really knowing what we were going to do with it, or how to get clients, or like what our niche was going to be. We were just like, this seems like the next right step. I'm really interested in helping people on a deeper level. And that was enough of an incentive for me to just go and do it.
And I did look into some other programs very briefly, but we got such a good recommendation that it felt very clear pretty quickly that iPEC was right. And what what really stood out to me as I was researching programs was there was a lot that were maybe more focused on just the online component, or there were some that seemed very truncated, as in like, let's get you certified in 30 days or something.
Let's like slap you into a weekend long virtual workshop and like charge you $2,500 for that. And you're going to leave not knowing how to coach anyone.
Right. I really wanted a thorough experience because I was like, I don't know how to coach people. I want to feel like I get the best training so I can best help people. And iPEC was by and large the most thorough experience that I saw, and especially the in-person component, which I definitely want to talk more about later on. That sold me.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
I wanted to have that in-person training experience.
There's an overly long answer to your brief question.
No, I love it. And you said two things that really jumped out at me. One is a lot of the people that do call us up, they think that they're not ready to talk to us until they have it figured out, right? Yeah. Like, how am I going to incorporate this in my life? What is my niche going to be? Who are my people?
Ooh. Good question.
That's a lot of responsibility before just picking up the phone. For one, like, so I'm really glad you made that point for one.
Can I riff on that for a hot second?
Yeah.
Because you do not have to have it all figured out, because coaching is not a career. It is a life skill. It is a tool that you can take to any career, to any like family dynamic, any relationship, and improve the dynamics there. And so you don't also then have to know what you're going to do with it, because you can take it with you wherever you go and transform the room that you're in, whatever room you happen to be in at the time. And so I've never had anyone do it and then regret it, because like, even if they're not using it in the traditional way, like quitting your job and becoming a coach is one small little sliver of what's possible when you get trained. A lot of the people we've met through iPEC are there not because they have any intention of quitting their job, but because they want to go back to their corporation or their company and be a better manager and engage people and help heal a lot of the toxic dynamics that you find in modern workplaces. So there's so many ways you can use it, and you absolutely do not have to have it all figured out before you do it,
because you're going to figure a lot of it out through the program. That's what you're going to be coaching so many people. You're going to be learning so many different options of what's available and how to use this. So it's like my mom told me that when she was going to college, she would always take her textbooks out at the very beginning before the first day of class, flip to the back of the book and say, I don't know how to do any of this stuff, and freak out and cry. And that's like asking yourself these questions. That's why you go to the class, because you're going to have those answers. You're going to know how to answer the questions in the back of the book by the end of the class. So you don't need to know that.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that it's so common, no matter how much we say it, that not having it figured out is not the first step at all. It's being brave enough to take the first step. That's the bigger deal. Mm-hmm. And I know both of you went through iPEC and it was right for you. And you even had a dichotomy between therapy versus coaching. And in the bigger scheme of things, one thing that I really like about iPEC is that we do the right thing for every person every time. So when iPEC is not the right fit, we tell them. So we'll tell individuals there's a better program for that person. And so if you're going through iPEC, it's because it is such a good alignment and a fit. But we also know that we're not the only company out there. So I love your dialogue around that. It was very right for you, and for other people, it's not. And so fantastic.
Absolutely.
I've got some questions that have built up here, so I'm gonna start some audience questions your way. So the first one is from Sherry, and Sherry writes, how do you find clients and make a real business out of coaching?
Okay, Sherry, this is a big question. This is a little bit of maybe looking in the back of the book, but it's okay. I'll give you a few pointers, but just keep in mind that the most important part of learning to become a coach is learning to become a fantastic coach first. Mm-hmm. And then the business building, that is a separate skill set. And when you are your own business owner, you have to wear both hats. You have to be the really masterful coach, and you are also the business person. So part of what's really helpful about iPEC is, I know we're probably going to talk about how people are going to ask how to get your first client, which is kind of what you're asking. And one of the things that you are asked to do in iPEC is you have to coach 10 people outside of the program, just non-coach people, non-peers. And that was how Rachel and I both found our first client. So as part of the process, you're being encouraged to go out, practice your skills on people who are not in your peer group, who are maybe potential clients even. And in those conversations, people are going to ask you, how do I keep working with you? This was a really powerful experience. And so right off the bat, you can start getting into bringing clients into your business, even if you don't have a totally solid marketing plan right off the bat, even if you're still learning how to be a business owner, because again, that's a different skill from learning to be a great coach.
And I want to reemphasize the point that you learn so much about the right kind of people you want to work with while you're getting trained. And you do not need to know that before you go into that experience. I understand why people want to, like, they're worried, like, oh my God, am I going to do this? And then it's going to be completely worthless because I can't find clients. First of all, it's not going to be worthless, period, because you transform so much as a person and you learn so much and you have a skill that no one can take away from you now and that you can use in any number of situations. So bottom line, the experience is worth it no matter what. And I want to just plant the seed that finding clients, I don't like the word finding, because finding implies that you have to be going out there
and convincing
like
people
knocking
to work
people's
with you.
doors and like cold calling. And I want to just erase the idea that you have to be like desperately out there seeking people. And that I really think that figuring out how to find clients is more about how do I show up in a way that's really authentic for me and give myself permission to not do all of the things that I'm supposed to be doing, because that's what good marketers do. Kristen and I, for example, we don't network. Like,
we also don't do social media.
We do, but like barely. I can't stand it. I'm a bad millennial and I'm an introvert. So going to a marketing, like to a networking meeting and exchanging business cards, I ain't gonna do it. You're not gonna catch me dead there. So Kristen and I, like, we leaned on what we're naturally good at. So we blogged, we started a podcast, and I'm not saying that starting those things instantly gets you clients, but we made a consistent effort to get known and to share our message in a medium that really worked for us and aligned with our personality. And one of the biggest mistakes I see new coaches making is that they're trying really, really hard to market themselves in a way that really feels off and not at all aligned with who they are.
They're doing what they think they should do.
Yes.
In order to start a business, instead of what they actually want to do in order to consistently get their name out there. Right. If you're always doing what you should do, you're not going to come across as authentic, and you're also not going to be able to keep it up consistently, which is what you need to be able to slowly and steadily grow a business.
It is so much more about you like giving yourself permission to work in a way that works for you, which is very much our whole message, which we can get into later if you want. But it's not about, there is no one right way to get clients. So that's not a great answer, because Sherry wants to hear, like, what's the magic formula? Potentially, there is none. It's literally about, you have to figure out what appeals to you and what lights you up and what aligns with you and what you can commit to consistently. And consistency is really what gets you there. Like, doing sporadic things and trying this and then trying that and then quitting and then doing this over here, like, that's normal at the beginning, but you have to be able to commit to something long term that will have the ability to grow and gain momentum. And to do that, you have to enjoy it. Like, you can't hate it. So long answer again.
Yeah, and I love the experience.
So complicated
too. Like, the idea is experientially, you get to find out the type of people you like working with. And I think everybody goes through that mechanical phase, right, of what they should do versus just going out there and literally putting more of their true natural selves out there. That's how you attract the type of people that you're going to really enjoy working with. And you're not going to have to go out and find clients, like you had said.
So. And I got to be honest, going out and finding clients doesn't really work. Like, I think it'll work, but it'll require 10 times more effort.
And you'll feel a lot more like you are selling and convincing. Whereas at this point, we do not at all convince people. We will actually tell them, if you want me to convince you, this is not going to be a good fit.
Right.
This needs to feel like we are both in alignment for what I'm offering to what you are seeking.
Yeah.
And if it's a great fit, it's not even a sales conversation. It's just let's do this thing.
Yeah.
We're actually, interestingly enough, it's like Kevin is segueing us, or you're segueing Kevin. We're flirting with his question already, so I might as well put it out there.
Okay.
We're butting up against his question of, what did you find to be the hardest part of establishing your coaching business, as you're talking about like the mechanical way versus, you know, and figuring your way out. So for the two of you, what did you find the hardest part of establishing your business?
The fact that it doesn't work almost all of the time, because that's what starting a business is like. Like, people are like, oh my God, okay. I love to rant. And so like, I'm going to go off for a second. People treat, and like, we're career coaches, so I see this all the time in my clients. People treat their career as if it should be their savior. Like, once I find a job or a career path that I love, then that will deliver all of my happiness to me and I'll be set. That is codependent. When you do that in a romantic relationship, we call that codependence. So I think what happens is that people get really, really upset about the prospect that it's not going to be easy, or that they're going to have rejection, and that they're going to have failures, and that they're not maybe at this point willing to see it. And I hope I can kind of try to reframe a little bit the idea that having failures and throwing a bunch of spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks, which is a big part of being a new coach, is a normal part of the process. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It just means that the beginning can and throughout can be very difficult, because you're not guaranteed success. You're not guaranteed you know, something that's just going to deliver your happiness to you, and that's that. Now I have a perfect life. That's not how life works. And so keeping the faith while you are going through those trials, and you're really like building your character and your like emotional muscle by trying things, and then those things not working, and then, you know, picking it up and dusting yourself off and trying something else. Not taking that process personally is hugely important. Not making it mean something about who you are as a person. Like, I am a failure because this is hard. No, this is hard because everyone who starts a business finds it very difficult, and it's just part of the nature of deciding to do it. It's the biggest like emotional, transformative, spiritual journey you could go on, I think.
Yeah, I think it's,
other than maybe having like children. Yeah. I think that's probably
I think like,
you know?
Marriage, starting a business, maybe going through a program like iPEC, like those are some of the most transformative experiences. You will learn so much about yourself starting a business, if that's the route that you decide to go post iPEC. And it's not all going to be pretty. And that's part of it, is to recognize that, oh my gosh, I thought I knew how to do this, and to look back and say, I actually have no idea. I have so much more to learn, because as a business owner, especially if you've never started a business before, which we had never, we really didn't know what we were doing. And so the answer we had before to Sherry, which was very personal. Like, I did all of those things that I thought I was supposed to do. I did all of the networking events. I was going out and doing in-person speaking events, which I hate. There was all kinds of things that I was like, I guess I have to do this. And I was so burnt out. I mean, I think we might have burnt ourselves out for years after the initial phase of starting a business, because of the way we went about it.
But which is normal. We're trying to say is that to a point, you can listen to expert guidance and try to avoid some of those pitfalls, but those pitfalls are a normal part of starting a business. Or, you know, if we're going to use the different analogy of having a baby, you know, you can have a parent telling you all of the things that worked for them, and here are the pitfalls you can avoid. And maybe like 2% of that will be helpful to you in your unique situation, but the rest you learn on the ground. Like, that baby shows up, and now you've got to figure out how to get through the sleepless nights and the terrible like teething process. And like, businesses go through those phases too.
A business is your baby.
It is.
Also, I do want to say this, because someone told me this when I was in iPEC, and I brushed it off because I thought I'm
smarter than that.
But no. Someone told me it takes 2 to 3 years to really get a business's foundation solid, where you can start to expect a little bit more consistency, a little bit more predictability. And I remember looking at Rachel and being like, we're pretty smart. We're pretty with it. I think we can beat that.
We're young. We don't have all those responsibilities.
No, it really took
it takes that long.
Because again, it's like a baby growing up. You can't expect it to be able to talk to you within the first 6 months. You can't say, well, my baby's smarter than everybody else. So it is important to recognize it's going to be a bit of a journey, and part of the challenge is having patience with that journey, because you want it to be a full-fledged business yesterday. And it might just take a little while, and that's okay. That's normal.
This kind of ties into a couple of questions that are coming together, and I almost want to just lump it in to answer some of these questions.
Sure.
The two of you have a really cool and unique story in that you partnered up together, and you it's not just the two of you have with your mastermind group and all of that. So I'd love if you would share a little bit about your experience. Like, one, why did you partner up together? What was that experience like? And then to this day, what does that look like for you together, as well as the mastermind group? How does that enhance what you're already doing?
Yeah, we met in college, by the way. We didn't meet at iPEC. So we've been friends since we were 19.
And we knew we wanted to create something together, and coaching ended up being the something that we created. Now, I also do want to say that the kinds of relationships that you make with people in your iPEC group are so, because you're doing such deep work in the process, both in what you're learning and what you're personally doing on your own personal growth, you establish really strong bonds.
Real intimate connections. Vulnerability requires, intimacy requires vulnerability, and becoming a coach, in that room with those people, it's a very vulnerable, in the best way, type of experience. So yeah, you can make such great friends.
And we have made such great friends. So I know there might be some people watching right now who are thinking, I would love to have a business partner, but I'm not going into this experience with a best friend who's already pre-decided with me to do this. If you are, it's great. I mean, it's been it's so helpful to have a partner in this. But if you don't have that person in mind, there's a very good chance that person will be part of the iPEC experience. So
or even the larger community in some way, you might find them through the process of getting trained as a coach.
So even though we already had in mind to become business partners, we have people who we meet with every month, almost without fail, unless we absolutely have too many plans.
They're best friends at this point.
They're our best friends, and they are also what we call our mastermind group for our businesses, because we will get together, and it's usually a day-long experience, and we will get into each of each other's businesses and say, hey, what's going on with you right now? How can we be of support? How can we help you brainstorm things? And these are people that we met directly through iPEC and have stayed friends with for years and years now. So it's not just a great experience for the time that you are in iPEC. These are relationships that, at least for us, have extended years and years past the program and continue to be supportive in our business.
I'll also say that, because she'll give you like the good story, I'll give you like the darker underbelly. So that's kind of the dynamic.
That's our deal.
But having a business partner is not all like cupcakes and rainbows. Like it, just like any relationship. But having gone through something like that together, I think what going through an experience like this is like your mindset. If you're going into coaching, if you're going into at least iPEC, this has to be your mindset. Your mindset has to be, I am here to transform as a person. And then from my personal transformation, that's going to ripple outward, and it's going to give me all of these skills, and it's going to change the way I show up, and it's going to change my ability to impact other people and the world around me. And so you learn to take a lot of responsibility for your stuff, and to really like look at your baggage and your crap and your perspective and the way that you're seeing yourself and other people that might not be of service to you or them, and might not even be accurate at all.
You also learn how to communicate really well.
Right.
That's what coaching is. It's a really powerful communication skill.
Yeah.
And so when you both have that, it's a lot easier when you do have disagreements, or when things are not always fun and rainbows and cupcakes, like you said, to be able to talk it out in a more effective way instead of in really reactive ways, because you don't yet have the skill set. So iPEC helps you be a better partner, whether it's a business partner or
a spouse,
a romantic partner, or a family member. All of those relationships improve.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I'm not married, but my dad and I had such a headbutting kind of dynamic, and me going to iPEC and becoming a coach completely changed my dynamic with him to the point where
he didn't change.
He didn't change. Let's be clear, he will never change. And it didn't matter, because I changed, and the way I saw him change, to the point where, the number of arguments and disagreements we got into decreased like 80 or 90%. Like, so you change so much as a person that the way you approach problems changes, and it makes it easier for you to work through difficulties and actually like be connected to another person in a really true, intimate kind of way, which is why you make really good friends, and you have the ability to establish good partnerships, because that's what real relationships are all about, is like vulnerability and intimacy and communication. So iPEC, you don't do surface level. Like, I have literally no friends who can't do this stuff because I can't tolerate it anymore. I'm like, if you can't go deep, like, bye.
You're tapping into something we actually, it happened. You don't see it in our advertising. You don't see it on our website, but most people come in because they want that piece of paper on the wall that says they're a certified coach. And we meet them where they are. But the reality is, at the end of the program, most people will say, I did get the piece of paper on the wall, but it was a life-changing experience. I know me better, and I'm no longer reactive to the world. I literally have like a choice on how I want to show up every day and how I want to react to the bad stuff. And so it's a little harder to throw that into the website, but it's the piece of paper on the wall is the cherry on the top. It's just
it sounds so
you actually get about yourself and your relationships through going through a program like iPEC, anything that actually goes a little deeper and lets you figure out yourself and the world around you. So I love that you tapped into that. Puck has a question for both of you. How did you build credibility and trust with potential coachees, considering you were both quite young when you started?
Oh, that's such a good question, because we got that one a lot.
Got that a lot. Well, one of the things we learned in coach training that you would learn as well is that coaching is not something that inherently requires life experience. It's because it's a skill set. It's about asking the right questions. It's about asking the questions that it doesn't occur people to be asking themselves, which is something anyone can do regardless of their age or their wisdom. Now, it helps to have wisdom and experience, because then that absolutely adds to your credibility. But I think that what we did is we focused on coaching people who could relate to us. So young, we started out coaching people who are around our age. And so they didn't see us as less credible necessarily, because they could relate to our millennialness and that kind of thing.
When I left my job to go do this coaching business full time, I was 24, and I was very honest with my company about why I was leaving and what I was doing with this whole coaching thing. And the owner of the company, a 65-year-old man who was considering going into retirement in the next few years, got really curious about what this coaching thing was that I was doing. And when I explained what coaching was and how it's not me telling you what to do based on my life experience, it's a process that I have become an expert in that I can take you through to answer those questions for yourself. He hired me right out of the bat. Like he was one of her first clients. He was one of my first clients, the owner of the company that I was leaving, who was in a completely different life phase than me, but because of the way I was able to articulate what coaching is about, which I learned in iPEC, he completely trusted me to take him through that process. So it can be helpful to work with people who can relate to you, but you are not limited to those people at all.
And I also think credibility has a lot to do with just real transparency and honesty, which is something Kristen and I have been naturally just doing our whole, like the whole time we've had a business, my whole life, really. Like, I think a lot of the time people try to be more professional, like, let me put on some sort of, professional facade so that I seem more credible than I am. And I actually think that backfires and it makes you look fake. And so the more honest you are about where you're at, I think the more people are attracted to relatability. So I think relatability, way more important than credibility, at least when it comes to like, years of experience and like degrees and all of that. Like, can you articulate something that someone really resonates with? In that case, honestly, they don't care. Like, our clients don't even really know, like, the degrees and all of that, like the ACC and the ICF distinctions. They don't care at all. What they care is, can you articulate my problem in a way that I haven't been able to articulate out loud to myself? And if you can, what they usually assume is, well, if you can articulate the questions I'm having so clearly, you probably can help me find the answers.
Yeah. You're kind of taps into, you started with, therapy and coaching, but realizing, and you get this through hopefully any program you go through, you start to really learn the difference between therapy, coaching, mentoring, consulting, and all of that. And so in that world of coaching, you don't have to be the subject matter expert, right? You don't have to have 20, 30 years of experience in the field of what you're coaching. The reality is, if you go through a good quality program, you'll come out with the ability to coach anyone, anywhere about anything.
Yes.
So that's the point that you're both bringing out there perfectly.
Yeah. And if someone isn't convinced, that's okay. They might not be an ideal client.
Yeah, like,
you don't
let's
have
just
to convince
not
everyone.
try to convince that person.
Yeah. This is interesting. So Joshua has a little bit of a tilt on that same question. So Joshua says, I'm a psychologist. I have a psychologist background. Do you see a trend where coaches work with psychologists and vice versa?
We're not partnered with any therapists or psychologists. We're not like referring clients back. Actually, I have done that though. Like I have referred some clients to therapy. And iPEC does teach you a little bit about how to do that, like how to recognize when someone might actually really need therapy versus coaching. But I think it's totally possible to have that kind of symbiotic relationship because, you know, one of the basic things we learn is therapy helps to take you from, you know, dysfunction to function. Coaching is ideally meant to help you go from functional to optimal. And that's something that, like, if you wanted to partner with a therapist or, you know, a psychologist, you totally could. And I've also heard of a lot of psychologists starting to integrate coaching so that they just personally can seamlessly bridge that gap and kind of flow back and forth between the two modalities. And I think that's a really awesome thing because one of the things that we find with some of our clients is they're really dissatisfied. They've gotten to a point where they're actually ready for coaching and they don't realize it. So they were kind of stuck in therapy for a while, feeling like, why am I not making any progress? Why do we keep talking about the same old wounds and family baggage? And it's like, that's great, but like, can we just move on from that? So
they've dealt with one phase, they're ready for the next phase, but they don't always know what that is. And so I do think that partnerships there can be really helpful. Or if this psychologist is in learning these coaching skills, you might be able to take someone through the entire life cycle of going all the way through the past experiences to heal those, get to a really healthy place in the present, and then move into where are we going next.
Yeah. I love that. I love the answer and I love the question because it comes up so much, and there's this interesting either misunderstanding about the two or missing the tie-in. So the idea that we often share with people is, if you think about therapy of any kind versus something like coaching, I relate them closer to when you injure yourself, you go to a physical therapist. They'll have you do stretches, they'll have you do exercises, but they're trying to get you back up to your 100%. So professional athlete, they'll go to that physical therapist in order to get them back to the 100%. The coach or the personal trainer is the one that takes you from your 100% to above that, right? It starts tapping into that higher level of potential. And a professional athlete does use both of those when needed and when appropriate, right? And it's the same thing with the anything that's getting you up to functional versus getting you up to optimal. So I think that was a fantastic question that came up from Joshua. So I appreciate you sharing that. This one's anonymous and could relate in here. After this question, I want to open it up for any. I know there's things that specifically both of you want to share. So I'd love to ask this one, and then I'll let you kind of take us down that road as well. So what do you feel is the biggest misunderstanding about coaching?
That's it.
A lot of people assume that coaching is giving advice, and which is why that question before was so relevant. Well, if you're 24, you don't have much life experience, how can you coach me? Because there is this assumption that coaching is telling people what to do. So if you are a prospective coach and you fear, I need to be able to tell people what to do, that's already really kind of scary because you can't possibly know what someone needs to do in any given situation. And if that's what you think it is, that would be very overwhelming. That is not what coaching is. And even if you recognize that, that might be a question that you're going to have to help potential clients understand, because again, they might say, I've had clients come to me and say things like, well, do you have any background experience in the financial world? Well, no, but that's not relevant for me to be able to help you get where you want to go and meet your goals in this coaching process. And so it is helpful to be able to clarify that misconception for yourself and for potential clients.
And like, let me add why it doesn't matter, because someone here might be like, well, I think it does matter that maybe they should know my finance background. Your story absolutely matters in that I want to hear it and I want to know more about you as a person. But as far as my ability to coach you, I don't really need to hear it, because someone's surface level problem, like, I'm not happy in my job. Okay. That's why a lot of people come to us. I feel like I need a new job. Well, I like to think of coaching like a tree, or a person really as a tree. Like, you've got your career branch, you've got your relationship branch, you've got your friendship and your family branch. All of it is supported by the same trunk. Like, the same foundation is supporting all of these limbs. So where we coach is trunk level, which means the beliefs, the fears, the limitations, the, lack of ability to understand what you want and who you are on the deepest level. That's what we have to get clear on. And that is something that's showing up not just in your career. It might feel like it's presenting the most, like it manifesting the most in your career in this moment. But if you feel like you're not enough in some way, guess what? That's showing up in more than just your job. And that's showing up in more, than just the one place you're fixated on right now. So we have to kind of get to the core of the problem, which is what iPEC is all about, core energy coaching. And so for that reason, I know I don't need to hear about your finance background or whatever, because you're a human, and your humanness is what I'm interested in. And everyone has the things in common that need coaching, right? Like feeling like I'm not good enough, feeling like I'm stuck, feeling like I don't know who I am or what I want. What do I even value? I don't know. No one ever asked me that question before. Like those common core human things are really like the level at which we coach around, not the like surface level branch stuff.
Yeah. I know I said I was going to turn it into you, but Emily,
that's fine. Keep asking questions.
Yeah. Emily has a question that just keeps it's such a well thought out question, and it's very, I know it's personal to her, but also it feels like a question that I think a lot of people are asking themselves. So
great.
Emily said, I'm trying to figure out when the right time in my life is to do this program.
Great question.
I'm working a full-time job in addition to being an independent contractor and looking for jobs. I'd love to hear more about how consuming this is. So it's really that fear of when do you launch off, when do you get started? And it's
really good question.
A worded, thought out question.
It is a good question because there isn't a such thing, and I get the sense that Emily knows this, which is why she's asking. There isn't a such thing as the perfect time to do anything like this, because life is always going to present challenges, and it's going to redirect you off of where you thought you were going, and that's just how it's going to be. I do recognize that there are times that might be a little easier. This is a fairly big time commitment. I would say there's going to be 3 long weekends that you've got to be able to commit fully to iPEC, and probably about 4 to 5 hours a week of phone time. Now, if you have a flexible enough schedule, you might be able to fit that in, but you also want to be able to dedicate some real time to this program because it is a personal journey as well as an instructional journey.
I will say that everyone I know did it while working full time.
We did it while working full time.
And that is very possible, or else no one would do it.
We've also had friends who went through this working full time and having kids, which I think is mad praise to
and like to the spouses who and grandparents who took over when they couldn't be there. But most people do it while working full time. And I would say that there's like a 6-month period where you're going to be really busy, but that's usually because that's in those periods, that's when you're doing the most coaching. You have a peer coach, you have a peer client, you have a group that you're meeting with, you have a teleclass every week.
You have a mentor.
And to an extent, you can work with your peer coach and your peer client to find the right time for you guys to have a session. So it doesn't have to be always at the same time every week, which can be helpful. But yeah, there's about a 6-month period where you would be pretty extra busy. But again, most people were still able to do it even though they have busy lives and working full time. It just took some planning and coordination, but I think it's very doable for the average person.
Yeah. I think you brought up a really good point. So a lot of that you were just talking about was literally the program itself, the training while you're just going through it. What is nice is there is a lot of flexibility in that. So since you're working with a peer coach or client, they also have a busy life. And so it might be on the weekend, it might be early in the morning, it might be, whatever that looks like for them, but that does come up a lot. It's a little more, there's some rigidity in the classroom, like certain set days for the classroom days, but then outside of that, there's certain things to get done, and then you both work on your schedule. Time. So I think that is something that we don't maybe talk about enough. This one, I'm going to try so hard to do a great job on this name for you. Santosh.
Okay.
I probably nailed it. Santosh. Is coaching about asking the right questions? Could you please explain this a bit with an example so that it would be really helpful to understand?
One aspect of coaching is being able to ask really good questions. That is certainly a skill that a coach will learn. There's a lot more that goes into coaching. And I'm obviously not going to give away the whole program, and I couldn't because we'd be here for 30 something hours, explaining all of that. But you can rest assured that you will feel very confident knowing how to take a client from one either mental, emotional state, wherever they are currently, into where they need to go. Part of that will be asking great questions. You will learn how to ask great questions. You will also learn how to work with their energy. There's a whole energy system and assessment and all of that to help you be able to recognize someone is at this place energetically, which means just their emotional and mental state. And you will know how to work with their energy to be able to move them to a higher level, better thinking place. So I don't know if the question is like, what are these things? That's kind of a hard one to get into right now, but I want you to trust that there are a lot of tools that you will put into your tool belt as a coach, even beyond asking great questions, that are going to be able to help you really shift your clients in a big way.
I want to add that just like as a little teaser, because I feel like he wants something tangible and I want to give him something tangible.
Ask for examples too, if you got it.
Yeah, well, so one of my favorite things to do as a coach, and one of the things you really start learning from like the first weekend of coach training, is how to reframe problems for people. People come in and they often have like the same story, like, oh, my mother-in-law is so annoying. I feel like she hates me. And so a great reframe that you can learn to do as a coach is, how true is it that maybe what she's thinking is actually more about her than you? And then they're like, what? And for example, like maybe your mother-in-law is actually just dealing with a lot of stress and personal baggage, and it's coming out as stress and it's being directed at you. But what if what your mother-in-law is saying is not actually a judgment about who you are as a person? And what if like her energy and her mentality has literally nothing to do with your worth and value as a daughter-in-law? Like those are the types of questions that you start to get into, the sort of conundrums you start to untangle in coaching, and you can reframe so many problems. Like just asking people, have you thought about it this way? Or could you potentially see it this way? Or how willing are you to step over and see it from this angle? That's one of my favorite parts about being a coach, because often people are so stuck with their blinders on, and it's natural. That's just what we do as people. We get really like fixated on our version of events, and coaching really teaches you how to like step back and do a bird's eye view of someone's situation and help them see other alternatives that feel a lot more empowering and a lot less personal and maybe hurtful to them. That's just a little example for you.
Yeah, I think a big part, people are so worried about asking the perfect next question, right? And
yeah, there is really no such thing.
Great things is, it is not that. You're guiding somebody in the dark to move forward when you can see perfectly clearly, right? Keeping them in that space of thought where they wouldn't do that for themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that, number one, hopefully most training programs out there really get you into that momentum of asking really great questions. It just happens very naturally. Even if you don't feel like you're good at it, you will be, for sure.
You will be.
And two, your client does all the work. They're doing all of the work for you. You're guiding them down a path. And so it's maybe a little less daunting than a lot of people think. So
it really is.
A couple really good ones here. So shifting gears into your business itself. Kevin asked, how do you establish the number of sessions to coach someone? And kind of elaborated, is it based on the results achieved? I've seen some practices where they sell different packages. Yep. It's all strange to me and deeply personal. So what are your thoughts on that?
Really good question. Really good question. So I will tell you a little bit about how we've structured it.
Which is based on what we learned at iPEC.
It is, yes. There's a lot of ways of doing it. And based on how you want to do coaching, I think this would change. For one, we do not do individual coaching sessions. We do not do one-offs, because to the way that we approach coaching and the way that we learned to approach coaching in iPEC is a much deeper journey that you are guiding someone through, just like Kirk was describing.
Yeah. So a single session,
doing that in 1 hour is asking a lot. And so we have structured it so that we have a package that is 6 sessions or a package that is 12 sessions. Those are not hard and fast numbers that everyone has to do, but that tends to work really well for us, because in those first 6 sessions, we tend to do a lot of the internal rewiring, the reframing Rachel just described, the direction setting, the figuring out, why am I getting stuck and where am I going next?
I like to call it like an emotional power washing. Like at the beginning, you're really clearing out a lot of gunk.
And setting the course. Okay. Yeah. So I thought I was going over here. I didn't like that. Where do I want to go? And how do I clear the path to get me there? And then in the second phase of coaching, that second 6 sessions, on average, this is not a exact science by any stretch of the imagination, but that's where the client tends to get a lot more into the action phase. So they might be going out and implementing a lot of the internal shifts that they have been going through. Mm-hmm. And then they'll want to come back and they'll want to talk about how that went in retrospect and maybe course correct a little bit, mm-hmm. and then go back out and take more action. And so we actually describe it to our clients exactly that way, that the full life cycle of coaching, at least in our business, is 12 sessions, because it takes them from that internal clarification process into the external implementation of what's changed. But we do have a 6-session package for people who maybe don't have the resources or the time to commit to the full thing. And we still take them through that more internal journey.
If I had my way, everyone would do 12 sessions.
Yes.
But like, I can't have my way. So right. We offer
don't want to
people,
say, if you can't do that, you get nothing.
But I've seen that, like when I'm thinking about us and our friends who are coaches, I mean, I think the longer term packages are always like 8, 12, 16, like somewhere in that length. And it depends too. If you're doing corporate coaching, it could be a little bit of a different flavor than working with an individual one-on-one. But I think that there is just a certain amount of time, and it's not going to happen much fewer than like 8-ish sessions in my experience, that someone needs to go from like intellectually understanding things to really deeply integrating it, which to me is the difference between I know what my issues are and I'm no longer held hostage by those issues, and I'm just acting in the world, and I'm different, and I'm not even really thinking about it. I'm just behaving differently, and then being held accountable for making some of the external like steps and action and experimenting that you need to do. Like that just takes some time. Yeah. So,
and we do offer individual sessions for clients who have gone through that entire process, who then might say, okay, I've got a job interview coming up and I'd really like to be able to talk through my fears that I'm experiencing beforehand, or I've got a big decision to make. Can we have a few sessions? So we do that, but only after they have gone through the whole life cycle of coaching, and then they want a little tune-up later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I'm hearing, and I think a lot of people also don't realize, is that it's your business. You literally get to create your universe the way that you want. So you make up the rules, whatever you want to do, right? So if you're like, I'll do one-on-one, if you commit enough to actually go through this, show that you're committed enough, or whatever your rule is. So I really love that.
And this is also based on experience of doing things that I didn't like and that didn't work. You know, at one point we did only 4 session packages, and I just felt like it wasn't enough. And so we stopped doing that. We added more. At one point we did do single session, like one-off, like a deeper dive 90-minute session. Hated that because I felt like all people wanted was a Band-Aid, and they didn't really want to do like the 8 or the 12 or whatever that I felt like they really needed. And so I was like, not going to do that anymore. So again, there's an experimentation, and you have to, you know, eventually you come up with your own process that really works for you and the type of people that you want to work with. Mm-hmm. So that's what works for us.
And I just want to also throw out there that one-on-one coaching is not even the only way to use the skills that you learn in iPEC. Right. We have virtual programs that we have created, which are very much based on the
core coaching
principles that we learned in iPEC and what we have learned from coaching so many people. And so that way we can take people in a more mass experience through the same kind of a process, even if we don't get to talk to all of them one-on-one. I still consider that just as much coaching as when I'm on a coaching call with a particular client.
Sure. And then, you know, you've got extroverted people who do workshops and like in-person group coaching. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can, you know, package your services. And again, it's so personal.
Boy, there's so many good questions that are popping up, and I know we're on different topics. I really wanted to make sure that we get time for you to share anything that we're not covering. Is there something in this moment I want to give like a little space? Is there something where you're I know you have an audience that's also watching specifically.
I feel like I would rather answer their questions because they're like, oh, shut up. Just tell me what I want to hear. Like, don't tell me what you want me to hear. And I'm fine with that. Like, let's just answer their questions.
You want to do.
Right. Right. I'm like, oh, let's just hear what they have to say.
Okay. So gosh, couple of good, let's see, any of these are, we'll switch gears a little bit. This one is, that one's similar to the last one. This is going into your typical day. So now you've been in your business has been going on for, what is it, 7 years now?
7 years.
Yeah, in one form or another.
The online passion profile quiz. You've got some of these online.
We have courses.
Yeah. So what does a typical day look like for you now?
That's a good question. That has evolved over the years very much, as you can imagine. One of the things, and maybe I'll actually use a typical week because that's a little bit more of how we break things down. One of the things that we have both realized, this will be different for every person, but it's really important to keep this in mind and figure out where this line is for you on how many clients you can take on in a day and in a week. And so in order to be able to break down my week, I have to be able to look at it and say, I cannot coach more than, for me personally, 10 people in a week without starting to feel burnt out. I cannot coach more than 4 people in one day without being completely exhausted, because you do give a lot of energy. I get energy from my clients, but I also am putting out a lot of energy for them. And if I am interacting with 4 people for hour-long sessions more than that in a day, I am wiped out. And I learned that the hard way. So
by doing 5 or 6 in a day and wanting to quit coaching altogether.
Thinking that's really important. There have been times when I was so burnt out because I was taking on way too many clients and I was afraid I didn't like coaching anymore. It was like, no, just have less clients.
Right. It was just a symptom of burnout, but that happens, you overshoot it.
And so you can mistake that if you go over your boundaries. So I make sure that
Which is fine, because going over boundaries is how you learn where the line is.
As long as you don't take that as, oh, clearly the whole thing's wrong.
Right. It might just be like, back up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a typical week, we both take Mondays off to do internal work. We have coaching sessions throughout the week. And again, maybe 2 to 3 to 4 on any given day. And that's spread out. So we have some evening people because we recognize people have different times and different time zones. That's up to you. If you're like, I don't do evenings, that's fine. You can work that out with your clients. We've always had people be able to work with our schedules. And in the meantime, we do our admin-y type stuff and our
emailing and podcasting.
And it's very much interspersed with, okay, I'm going to go make a snack now. I'm going to go take a walk now. I'm going to go to a yoga class now throughout the day, because that's the way we wanted to structure our business. You might decide I want to only work, 8 to 12 a.m. and then the rest of the day is like, you can structure it however you want. I like the interflow of work and life. And we did that on purpose.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I know we're coming up on time. So I want to say, for Suzanne in the background, if you would add that link into the chats for if anyone has questions specifically about the iPEC program. I promised you that we would put that link in there. So this link is, remember, you do not have to have it figured out. We like to do the right thing for every person every time. So wherever you are, you're in exactly the right spot. That link will give you a one-on-one chat with the admissions team. They're all certified coaches, been through the program. Ask them whatever you want, give them your story, and they'll help you from there. So that link, put in the box. One thing for this group, we happen, timing-wise, we have something called advanced standing. I'm not gonna go into it too deeply. It's on our website. So actually, if Suzanne, you could put a link in for advanced standing, you can learn about it, great. And right now in this moment, we have approximately 13 days, 3 hours, 32 minutes, and 12 seconds left to sign up for that. So it's
approximately.
Approximately. You'll see that on the
approximately.
As well, give or take. So closes on October 15th. If that's something that is interesting to you, you still have, this group particularly still has time for something like that. With that, for the two of you, I'd love to know, how can people get in touch with you? What do you ultimately want them to write down?
I actually saw a couple things pop up. Someone was like, hey, how can I find your podcast? So a couple things I want you to do. ClarityOnFire.com, that's our website. Clarity on Fire is also our podcast name. So you can search on any podcast app, also on YouTube.
We have a podcast tab on our website too, so you can find all of our episodes on our website or also on your favorite podcast app.
You should take our quiz if you want to. ClarityOnFire.com, passion profile quiz. It's on the homepage. You won't miss it. It's 11 questions. It helps you figure out the intersection between your career and your passion. If I had a whole nother hour, I would talk to you about how important it is to understand your passion profile before you start a business, so that you ain't like going off in left field trying to start.
But rest assured that this will help you figure out how to use coaching and how to connect it with your career. That is what we are trying to help people do. Is just because you love something and are good at something doesn't mean you need to incorporate it in your career just like everyone else would. You have a unique way of doing that, and this will help you uncover that.
Yes, right. I would answer 10 million more questions if I could, but
let's just stay all day. We're going to extend this out 4 more hours, everyone. Maybe not.
We don't need to eat. It's fine.
Yeah.
For those of you, this is usually a panic moment. When we shut this down, you'll see the chat boxes and everything go away. If you're on this live chat, don't worry. We will actually send out the recording and the links, and you'll have all of that in your email. However, for those that didn't join live, they won't actually see this for a week or two anyway. So any of the links that you do want, I would encourage you to go ahead and click on those, open them up in your browser. ClarityOnFire.com is a really great place to go. Check that out, save that, and take that quiz as well. So I love it. Well, Rachel and Kristen, thank you so much for all your time. This was very enjoyable. I really appreciate you sharing your story, and hope to have you again soon.
Thank you.
This was
Thanks
great.
so much. Have a great day. See you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.